Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to the Psalms of my friends. Today we're going to be joining Jesus on the cross, figuratively. So, to get our heads around Psalm 22, we have to notice when Psalm 22 was quoted, and we'll get to that. So, Psalm 22 starts with, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me from the words of my groaning? And then in the next stanza, verse 4, the psalmist noticed that in you our fathers trusted. So there's a change of entrusting. And then we're going to get to our verse today, which starts in verse 6. And it's going to be a very specific description of crucifixion. So here it is, Psalm 22, verse 6, our official verse for today. But I am a worm and not a man, scorned by mankind and despised by people. All who see me mock me. They make mouths at me. They wag their heads. Verse 8, he trusts in the Lord. Let him deliver him. Let him rescue him, for he delights in him. So yesterday, we learned that Jesus quotes Psalm 22 on the cross. Why have you forsaken me? Then the second one is, it is finished. Now, this is very interesting that his crucifiers, his enemies, his opposition actually quotes Psalm 22 as well when Jesus was on the cross. This is from Matthew 27, verse 43. So the mockers are saying, he trusts in God. Let him deliver him now, if he desires him, for he said, I am the Son of God. And the robbers who were crucified with him also reviled him in the same way. So we have the authorities reviling him. We have the thieves on the cross, the two thieves on the cross, reviling him. And they quote Psalm 22, which is fantastic. So the bad guys also point to Psalm 22. So Jesus points to it a whole bunch of times. We'll get to that. So the bad guys say to us, in a sense, that Psalm 22 is about Jesus on the cross. So the opponents even note what Jesus is doing on the cross. He's not forsaken. They note his trust. So they note that Jesus is delighting in the Father. Yeah, when? Yes, on the cross. So Jesus delights in his relationship with the Father. So how do we know? Well, Jesus' enemies actually tell us this at this moment in time. So they're doing their job of mocking Jesus. Remember what that is. That's when you imitate somebody derisively to make a point. So you're low and beneath, and they want to bring you down, to humiliate you. So that's when they slap a crown on him, and they act like they're worshiping him, not to emphasize that he's a king, but to make the argument that you are specifically not a king. So they're mocking, and Jesus, in response, is trusting and delighting. So remember that he's remembering the Lord in the past, he's entrusting in the moment, and then he's speaking of this intimacy and closeness. So Psalm 22, and it's quoting at this exact moment in time, tells us about the intimacy of the Father and Son while Jesus was on the cross. Verse 9, yet you are he who took me from the womb. You made me trust you at my mother's breast. Verse 10, on you I was cast from my birth, and from my mother's womb you have been my God. Be not far from me, for trouble is near, and there is none to help. So circumstantially, for the psalmist, and this is also about David, and for those whom the psalm is correctly warned, I'd argue, Jesus, things are bad. Trouble is near. People have isolated him. At least his friends. And at least for a period of time, even the good thief on the cross was still the unrepentant bad thief. So how many disciples abandoned Jesus? Mark 14 tells us that in the Garden of Gethsemane in verse 48, Jesus says to the crowd, have you guys come out with me as a robber with swords and clubs to capture me? He says, day after day I was with you in the temple teaching, and you did not seize me. But let the scriptures be fulfilled. And they all fled him. All the remaining disciples, all 11 of them, abandoned the Lord. Already Judas had abandoned him. So in many ways, to read Psalm 22 is to join Jesus on the cross, and that is to walk through the experiences of the mocking, the abandonment, and the suffering. So verse 12, many bulls encompass me, strong bulls of Bashan surround me. They open wide their mouths at me like a ravening and roaring lion. So Jesus is surrounded by bulls, lions, and a little bit here dogs. And he's being devoured in this life. Now, all the while he's suffering and sacrificing, he's paying the just penalty for us that was due us and enduring the unjust penalty that was upon himself. And all the while he could have got out of it at the snap of a finger. Verse 14, I'm being poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax, it is melted within my breast. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, verse 15, and my tongue sticks to my jaws. You lay me in the dust of death. So we've got dehydration. I'm being poured out like water. My tongue sticks to my jaws. You lay me in the dust of death. We have dislocation. All my joints, bones are out of joint. We have this cardiac tamponade, which is the probable actual cause of death from cardiac effusion. My heart is like wax. It is melted within my breast. And then we found out more about this when Jesus is stabbed after the death and water fluid pours out. And then we've got this exhaustion. Remember, in crucifixion, your arms are pinned out in a Roman crucifixion, and the key element in a crucifixion death is exhaustion. It's the inability to raise yourself up and take the pressure off your arms and exhale. So on a cross, you would exhale on the way up, and then to breathe in, you lowered yourself down, sunk yourself back down, letting your arms pull your chest open to inhale. So you inhaled and exhaled, inhaled and exhaled. And he says, I'm poured out like water. My strength is dried up like a potsherd. So Jesus is suffering a very unfortunate exhaustion. All right, so to study Psalm 22 is to study a crucifixion. To experience Psalm 22 is to experience the suffering that Jesus had on the cross. So thank you for being with me today to join Jesus on the cross.